Just welcome, good morning. Welcome to our breakfast series. I'm Candy Barksdale, and I'm the chair of the Executive Board of Leadership Southern Indiana. And as I was walking up to the podium, I had this sinking feeling because I pulled this paper out of my purse and I thought, oh, please tell me that I have my remarks for this morning and I didn't just pull my family's Christmas list out of my purse. Because I don't think you want to hear, Mom wants a hat. Leadership Southern Indiana is very fortunate because we're led by two groups of volunteers, an executive board and a board of advisors. I would like the members of both of those boards to please stand. Thank you for your service to LSI. We're accomplishing great things because of your leadership. You know, I get the fun job this morning because I get to recognize people and thank people. How great is that? I mean, I've just got an awesome job. So on behalf of the Executive Board and the Board of Advisors, we're honored that all of you are attending our breakfast series, and we have a fabulous program this morning. I want to thank Sister Barbara Ann Zeller, Mr. James Robinson, and Mr. Robert Shine for their willingness to be here and share their wisdom with us. Thank you. I also want to thank the sponsors for today's program, the Horseshoe Foundation of Floyd County and the Paul Ogle Foundation. Your generosity makes this breakfast series possible. So thank you to our sponsors. I also have a very special thank you for our breakfast series committee chaired by Andrew Takami. Will the breakfast series committee members please stand? Thank you for bringing this very informative program to us. And then also, thank you to Ivy Tech for hosting this morning's breakfast series. What a beautiful venue to begin your day, to be on this gorgeous campus. And if you have already eaten, a huge thank you to Terry Lynn's Catering for this delicious meal this morning. So thank you, Ivy Tech and Terry Lynn's. And one final recognition is our current leadership class. Will the members of our current class please stand? We thank you for your participation and promise this will be a wonderful part of your career and of your life. Following this morning's program, I want you to stay tuned because there's going to be a very exciting announcement. So that's my way of saying don't leave early because you do not want to miss this announcement. And at this time, Andrew Takami is going to come forward and tell us what's in store.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you so much. Candy, thank you so much. And as Candy says, it's so wonderful to have all of you here today at Ivy Tech Community College. And Candy, as I think we all know, is just a bright light and a strong leader in this community, which is what we do for LSI. We recognize leadership and had an opportunity to serve with her organization in a volunteer capacity for a number of years. And I can say that she does a terrific job on a daily basis, and I know certainly she's doing a wonderful job for LSI. So please give her a warm thank you for all that she does for so many organizations, including Leadership Southern Indiana. Well, good morning all, and welcome to something new and quite different for our LSI breakfast series. We're delighted to present our first ever panel discussion. The subject is leadership. The panel is exemplary. The moderator, however, he's concerning to us all. But rest assured, Ed Jerdonek has promised to be on his best behavior this morning. So, Ed, we're just delighted you're here, and we look forward to your moderation today. In all seriousness, though, as chair of the LSI Breakfast Series Committee, it's my honor and privilege to introduce our distinguished panel this morning. And of course, I'm so pleased to serve on this committee with Ed Jerdonek and others who are just recognized. Candy recognized our sponsors. I just want to once more do that. We're so grateful for the generous contributions every time that we have one of these breakfast series from the Horseshoe Foundation of Floyd County and the Paul Ogle Foundation. I know Jerry Finn's here and Kevin, several, Diane Benedetti with the Horseshoe Foundation and with the Ogle, Bob Lanham, Seal Blau. So let's give them a round of applause again. We thank them so much. They do so much. Well, without further delay, I know we're eager to hear from our guests, so I'd like to just spend a few minutes to talk about the three remarkable people on stage this morning. They will be sharing their profound stories of success, leadership, and vision, and we in turn will have the opportunity to learn from their wise counsel. Their resumes are too lengthy to convey this morning. We would spend the rest of our time, if we did, recounting their achievements. I will offer a few comments, and you'll see additional bios, or I think you already have, in the brochures that you were mailed. But if not, there's always Google, right? We all use Google. First, we have Sister Barbara Ann Zeller. We're so grateful she's here today. She came to our community from Evansville and is an education graduate of St. Mary's of the Woods College. She received her master's in genealogy from North Texas State University. We know her as a caring servant leader who does the work of her faith as president and CEO of Providence Self-Sufficient Ministries. Sister Barbara Ann Zeller, thank you for joining us this morning. All the way to our left, we have Mr. James W. Robinson. Mr. Robinson was raised in Floyd County, and that's where he fashioned the kind of entrepreneur success that you read about in business magazines. He co-founded what was to become Robinson Nugent Incorporated with his father and his brother. That tremendous successful business venture led to more companies, more adventures, and a life of service. The Robinson family is synonymous with philanthropy in our community. In fact, our campus just recently opened the James W. and Phyllis A. Robinson Nursing Pavilion across the way, a technology-driven and instructional wing devoted to nursing students and faculty. Mr. Robinson, you are a business icon and a great friend in our community, and we thank you so much for making time for us this morning. Ladies and gentlemen. Next, please welcome a man I'm honored to call a friend and mentor, Mr. J. Robert Shine. Mr. Shine is a Hoosier through and through. Born and raised in New Albany, he earned his bachelor's degree at Indiana University and forged a prominent career in public accounting with Monroe Shine and Company. And I can personally attest that Mr. Shine is also devoted and respected for his encouragement and support of leadership and public service in our community. Many of you, I think, know this as well. So, Mr. Shine, thank you for joining us this morning and participating in this unique event. Just the last thing I'd like to say before I turn it over and introduce our moderator, but I'm afraid our words are not enough to convey the true measure of these community leaders. However, I can offer words from the poet Samuel Taylor Coleridge that might provide insight into the source of their special wisdom. Coleridge wrote, "Common sense in an uncommon degree is what the world calls wisdom." And so, let us hear from these uncommonly wise leaders. As noted earlier, our moderator is a man of good humor and occasional high spirit. And we are much better for it. Ed Jerdonek is president and CEO of a 160-year-old architecture and engineering firm, Luckett and Farley. He is also a volunteer and leader who gives much of his time and treasure to causes throughout our community. A good friend of Ed suggested, and Ed, I'll give you one guess who that good friend was, that I use this quote from another wise Hoosier, Abraham Lincoln, when introducing Ed Jerdonek. President Lincoln once said, "It has been my experience that folks who have no vices have very few virtues." Won't you please welcome our most virtuous moderator, Mr. Ed Jerdonek.
So that's the way it's going to be. Let me tell you, I just spent the last 5 days in New York City. I am jacked right now, so you better watch it. That's nothing compared to what we got on the subway yesterday, so. All right, so here's how it's going to work today. I've got a wireless mic, which I love, and we're going to engage our panel, Sister Barbara, Bob, and JB. I was hoping that Sister would sit in the middle so we could have a rose between two thorns, but we'll just make do with the order in which we've got. So what I want to do is I'll introduce some questions and hopefully prime the pump. Now I've got a wireless mic so I can roam around the audience just like Phil Donahue. And for those who are younger, that would be Montel Williams, I think. So I think that's young enough. Maybe I'm really showing my age. Okay. So this is the inspiration for the day. I met a wonderful man several years ago at New Albany Rotary, and he was great. He was an educator, a retired educator at New Albany Floyd County Schools, and a World War II vet. And he was just a man who was full of wisdom and teaching, and he didn't try. Each Thursday, I would try to sit next to this man. Because I knew that every time I would interact with him, I would gain something that I didn't have before. And it was very true, and that's exactly what happened. And so I began to surround myself with wise, seasoned, I'm not going to say old or anything like that, individuals who again, I could use as my secret mentors. And JB and Bob fit the bill perfectly because they too are individuals that each time I interact with them, I come away with something that I didn't have previously. Sometimes it's worthless information, but other times it's really good business stuff. And during the course of this I met Sister Barbara, who I hadn't known before, and this is really fortunate for me. I will tell you, JB and Bob, when I met with Sister Barbara, she left me feeling awesome. I mean, I left my meeting with Sister Barbara, and I was ready for the rest of the day. I felt like $1,000,000. She lifted me up and made me feel wonderful, and you guys have never done that. Just saying, right? All right, so enough about all that. What we want to do is this is an opportunity, this is really a great opportunity for us to learn from people who have been there. Southern Indiana has some outstanding young men and women who are going to be tomorrow's best leaders. And there's an awful lot of hope that I get from that. So this will be an opportunity for those up-and-coming leaders to ask questions and to gain some insight and knowledge from people who have stepped on every imaginable landmine and learn from them. So I'm going to really encourage everybody, I've got a wireless mic so I'll roam around, to really ask questions. So let me start off by saying this. And everyone's mic'd up too, so we can just talk freely. So I'd like to know from the panel, and maybe Sister Barbara can start, are leaders born or are leaders made?
My take on that question, Ed, is I think we're all born with aptitude. And I think it's up to us to name and to recognize that aptitude and to live it, to embody it, to exercise it, and to share it unselfishly.
Thank you.
I agree with Sister Barbara, as I do on almost everything.
I get jacked up now.
No. I learned very quickly that was the way to go.
After all, she has a relationship to a higher power.
We hope.
And my thought on that question is that there are certainly some naturals, but most of us have the innate ability, but it needs to be shaped, improved, worked on, monitored. Your attendance at this seminar this morning, I think, is an indication that you're interested in this topic. There are some who are not qualified to be leaders, who don't want to be leaders, generally recognize that they don't have whatever combination it takes to provide leadership. So I guess to summarize, fewer naturally born, and quickly and early identified, and I hope we'll have a chance to talk about some of those as examples that many of you will know this morning.
Thank you. How about you, JB?
Well, it's really a tough question because I think of examples of both born and what somebody would call self-made. So it's a little difficult to distinguish between the two. Perhaps the best answer is to split the middle and say some of both, inadequate and equal and amounts. And benevolent leaders are really hard to come by because sooner or later they get to thinking as men and women that they're gods, and that's not true. So I'd say that it's a good start to be born of wonderful parents as a beginner, and certainly in a country as great as America, gives more opportunity to be a significant leader than most any place else in the world. What we value so much is our freedom, and that's what makes it possible to exercise our human thoughts and deeds, and for good or for bad. You have bad leaders too. Hopefully they can be found out and not listened to.
Thank you. Any questions from the audience? Any follow-ups? If you do, just raise your hand and I'll come over and get you and give you the mic. Well, I've talked about my inspiration for some of the folks that I try to surround myself with. People who are better leaders than I am, people who have a take on leadership in the world that I haven't been experienced to, and certainly you two gentlemen are among those, and now I'm proud to be able to include Sister Barbara in my circle as well. So I look to people like you for my leadership inspiration. Who do you look at for your leadership inspiration? JB, why don't you start?
It's going to sound like self-dealing here, but one of my mentors for, I don't even want to say how many years, Bob, but Mr. Shine has been a stalwart guide to the right thing to do. And if you always do the right thing to do, you'll come out all right in the end. And he was doing the right thing when 90% or more of our local businesses were, to say the least, cheating on their property taxes. Well, I tell you how that impedes progress. We moved from our garage into a piece of a building on East 8th Street. And when that was the first time we filled out a property tax return, local property tax return. And when I got finished and applied the tax rate, I owed more than the company was worth. How can that be? So somebody said, go talk to the auditor. So I went down and talked to Mr. Neely, the auditor. So here's the problem. He said, I said, do you know other business people in town? I said, sure. He said, see if they'll share their property tax returns with you. So I went to 3 that I thought were reasonable and that would share their information with me on a confidentiality basis. And talk about an embarrassment. One of them turned as red as those chair seats. He was so embarrassed to say what they assessed their property. And it wasn't long after that, I'm sure with Mr. Shine and Judge Telly Orbison's help, we got that fixed better. I'm sure some of it still goes on, but it was wholesale. And you couldn't really do much. We had snow plows that didn't work. We had paint striping equipment that didn't work because in those years, the government was literally starved to death. I wish we had some of that back now, I guess, but not the way it was taken then, under false pretenses. So that's the kind of guidance that I clung to. And when they finally did reassessment by order of the state legislature, I heard property taxes going up 400%, and I thought, well, we've been paying part of yours, and now you're having to carry the whole load. So anyway, that's both a story of one of my mentors and a gentleman who's still giving back to the community.
Thank you, JB. Sister Barbara,
Where?
I'm back here now.
Gotcha. Almost fell asleep.
Roaming around. What about your leadership inspiration?
My leadership inspiration comes from the wonderful people with whom I minister. Meeting them day in and day out in the daily fray and their struggle with life. They've taught me so much. They continue to inspire my creative juices. They have shaped my entrepreneurism. I love being in southeastern Indiana. I'm a transplant of about 30 years. And when I came to this community, everyone here was so welcoming and so hospitable and really embraced the Sisters of Providence, of whom I am a member of that congregation. And what I've really tried to do in my 30 years here, particularly the last 18 years, because I've had the latitude to do that, is to find particular social services niches where there are tremendous needs that are not being met, and to see if, in fact, we might be able, as a group of men and women, bring creative and credible solutions to some of those needs. And I'm here to tell you, we could not do it without the leaders in this room and the magnificent people that God sends into our lives to minister with and to care for. So again, the folks that I work with, but basically the folks that I minister with are the source of my inspiration and courage. Excuse me.
Thank you. Bob?
This sounds like a mutual admiration society, but before Jim made those remarks, I actually had him on my list.
Oh, I thought you were going to say me.
We'll get to you later. There's some things that, well, first, character. You haven't asked what kind of qualities a leader should possess, but character is at the top of my list. And this is a little story about Jim and the company, Robinson Nugent, that he and his brother Sam founded and ran, and my brother worked there. Sam Shine had a good job. He was a stockholder, set for life. Tells me one day that he's leaving. And what did I think of that? I think, well, it's a terrible mistake. You're set up for life here. Why would you want to leave? Well, he says, you know, there's this niche of the business that they don't want to pursue, and I think that it has some promise. Well, I think you're crazy, but I guess if you want to jump off the deep end, why, it's certainly your prerogative. So I don't know what Jim thought about it, but he did leave, and Robinson Nugent, as Jim has indicated, was a longtime client of the firm. Well, I thought sure we'd get fired because Jim and Sam would think that I would tell Sam, my brother Sam, about their business, and well, days, months, years went on, and they never said anything about it. And I told Jim this morning, I said, Jim, you care if I tell that story? He didn't even remember the story. Well, folks, those of you who are in the marketplace know that in many circumstances, our firm would have been discharged because there would You agree with that, don't you? And it speaks to the character of Jim Robinson that they operated on a higher leadership plane than the typical individuals. Jim has been a leader in many things in this community. He's served on the school board. He's run for public office. He's someone that we're trying in our little group called the Windsor Group. Can we make a plug for that? This is what we're organized to do, to get young people of leadership. Brian Lenford, one of our members who's been elected to office. Some of you folks have got to step up and provide leadership like the Jim Robinsons of the past. And if we're going to make this a better community, a better country, and that's one of my political messages this morning.
Thank you. I was wondering how long it would be before we went political. I want to do a little mid check here. And Phyllis Robinson, is everything going okay so far? Okay, good. Phyllis whispered in my ear very discreetly that if things didn't go well, she was going to meet me out in the parking lot.
Whoa.
I don't want to get roughed up. All right. We have a question.
How do excellent leaders balance confidence with humility?
Confidence with humility. Sister Barbara, you want to take a stab at that?
I would love to take a stab at that. I believe that confidence begets humility. I believe, again, in servant leadership. I believe that leaders must absolutely be selfless. And I think humble people are some of the strongest individuals that we could ever come to know. I think that they are folks who openly express thanksgiving for the very gift of life and all that it might hold, and reflect that by sharing generosity and goodness and kindness with others. So I truly do believe that confidence begets that humility. And I think that a very humble person realizes, as do these icons of the community, that if we are a leader, if we are successful, we haven't done it on our own. You know, it's been given to us. It certainly has been earned by us, potentially. But again, we're surrounded with such goodness and kindness and people who want to share their gifts with us that we never forget our roots and where we've come from, and we give it back.
Thank you. Well, one of the common denominators for all three of our panelists is each one of them was initially reluctant, or maybe not reluctant, but expressed humility about being selected or asked to participate. So I think humility is a defining characteristic from all three. Bob, do you want to take a stab at that question?
Humility is on my list of the characteristics that should be possessed by a leader. Confidence, I think, is an internal asset or attribute. In whatever leadership role you may have, I think you need to work hard to study the problem, to be sure that you have the best answer for the problems to be solved. And but that's something you keep inside here. You don't lead in the best way by expressing the confidence. And this is where humility comes in my opinion. And if you are humble in your approach in all matters, I think this is an attribute that wins people to invest confidence in you. And I think the Lord loves a humble person as well.
JB, your turn.
Well, I guess I could say that one of the two largest issues to deal with in operating a business is alcoholism and egotism. And you can usually tell when somebody's drunk, but it's hard to tell when somebody's got an oversized ego, taking credit for everything good that happens and placing blame for everything bad. So it really is important to set a good example, and it's very difficult to identify ego per se that's destructive, but many times it is. And that's what I've found. If you can turn loose the trust of jobs to young people and give them a taste of experience and pat them on the back, and hopefully they'll learn from that and pass the positive aspects along instead of the negative. But those are two really big problems to deal with, and over the years, I've not been able to cure a bad case of either alcoholism or superego. You just have to let it run its course, and if left go long enough and unchecked, it'll destroy the person that's got it. So.
Thank you. Bob, you know, you're in a unique position among the three panelists because as a CPA, you've had the opportunity to interact with, you know, hundreds of business leaders, probably some very good, some not so good. What have you learned throughout your career as a CPA interacting with some good leaders?
I've learned to model myself after them, and one of the things that I did in preparation for this seminar, which I mentioned to you, and I interviewed 4 of our most successful clients and had the opportunity. One of the good things about my profession is that you have the opportunity to see many different businesses as you've described. Some are successful, some aren't. Some will be in the same business and in the same town, or maybe even across the street from each other. One does great, the other one doesn't. Why is that? It's the leadership, it's the people. No matter what business you're in, some may be better than others in terms of opportunities, but no matter what business you're in, if you assemble the right team, lead them in the right direction, set up the proper strategic plan, follow up with whatever your goals may be, and get everybody on board, you'll be successful. I'm firmly convinced of that. These 4 people that I mentioned who have been extremely successful are not all the same. 2 of them probably are, well, really even 3 follow the rule book of being the kind of a leader that I think those of us here today believe that you should be, an encouraging example of what is right, the character to do business in the right way. The last one shows that all leaders aren't the same, is very autocratic. He doesn't welcome comments from his staff, but he is a genius in terms of understanding the products that he has for sale, how to acquire them, how to market them, and incredibly successful. So one set of rules does not fit all, and there are exceptions to every rule, I guess.
Thank you. Sister Barbara, we have several nonprofit leaders in the room today. What kind of advice would you give leaders in a nonprofit organization on how to cultivate an environment of leadership and humility and organizational alignment in the nonprofit world? Are there special challenges that one faces?
I don't know because I've never been in the for-profit world, but I might want to try that next time. For me, again, whether you're for-profit or not-for-profit, I think that your vision is all that really matters. I think that you have to live your passion. When I referred to aptitude early on, I think that success and effective leadership is birthed by truly living and loving what it is that you do. You have to embody it. You have to live it with every fiber of your being. And I truly believe that leadership is an intention of the heart. I believe that a leader truly knows herself, knows the meditations of her heart, knows what is within her, around her, and beyond her, and always keeps her eye on that selfless element, ready to render personal sacrifice, to give it all. And again, not for herself, but again, for the vision and the mission and her passion, for the betterment of the community, whether it be with God's children, women, families, poor, or whatever. But again, I think everybody in this room has an aptitude for goodness. And you're here because you want to better the community. And as I look around this room, wow, what a remarkable and swell group of people. So kudos to each of you for absolutely everything that you're about. But again, I think we can only be effective, whether we're in the for-profit, nonprofit, is if in fact we can live that passion and truly love what it is that we do.
Thank you. Well, I do know one or two people in the community who have very little aptitude for goodness. And I'm not going to mention any of them. Just kidding, Terry. Just kidding.
We thought we were talking about yourself, Ed. What do you mean?
Getting zinged by a nun. That's great.
A Providence nun at that. Yes, that's right.
Well, you might as well join the club. Everybody else does it. JB, you are a risk taker. And I've always admired that about you. But I would think that I used to characterize, or I still do characterize you as one of the smartest men that I've ever met in my life. Tell us about your entrepreneurial spirit, your risk-taking. How does that balance? How does your desire to launch a new business or to take a business risk mesh with your ability to get others to follow you?
Thanks for the kind words. You know, I really see in my business life, as well as life in general, that I've had a lot of divine guidance. I said an awful lot of prayers over the years, and things just seem to fall into place. You know, I almost feel that I don't have any control over it. I just do what it seems to be the right thing at the time. And the people that are in the businesses, that was one thing that I read Forbes a lot, and I want to recommend that to you folks. I don't get a commission. But I don't call it a business magazine. I call it a liberal arts magazine because it covers virtually every subject in economics and life. And you can learn a lot from it. Lots of good stories of success. At any rate, things just seem to tie together. Way back in the 1930s, my late father had a meeting with people from Caldwell Tanks, Louisville, Kentucky. Dad was up in Clay County, about a water tank for fire protection and sanitary drinking water for the community. It didn't work out, but he talked about how wonderful the folks from Caldwell Tanks were. So 50 years later, my bank calling officer said, this company's for sale in Louisville, you might be interested when you retire. it's closed right now. It's Caldwell Tanks. And I said, well, I'll be doggone. I know them. They're a fine company. It's too bad. One thing led to another, and we ended up buying it. And we had a slogan that said, it was 98 years, the company was 98 years old when we bought it, 17 people. And we set a slogan for those 17 people left, that we were going to make it to 100 years or bust. So that was our slogan, 100 or bust. And today we've had a tough time with the housing slump, but we're still in there kicking pretty good, and the employment's somewhere approaching 400. And it's been an exciting retirement program. And like I say, I'd like to take credit for having the vision that water tanks were going to be around for a long time. But you don't have to be a genius at that. You just look around and see the skyline, and there they are. So I guess maybe you see what you're looking for. Anyway, if I could take this a little bit more time, I've got a poem I'd like to share with everybody. It's when I originally received it, this had author unknown. Well, I subsequently read a book of poetry by Edgar A. Guest, and there was the same poem. Here it is. I'd rather see a sermon than to hear one any day. I'd rather you should walk with me rather than merely showing the way. The eye's a better pupil and more willing than the ear. Fine counsel is confusing, but examples always clear. And the best of all the preachers are those who live their creeds, for to see the good in action is what everybody needs. I can soon learn how to do it if you'll let me see it done. I can watch your hands in action, but your tongue too fast may run. And the pictures you deliver and the lectures you deliver may be very wise and true, but I'd rather get my lesson by observing what you do. For I may misunderstand you and the high advice you give, but there's no misunderstanding how you act and how you live.
Thank you. All right, we have an audience question.
Thank you very much. One thing I was curious about, I'd like to know how old that each of you were when you first decided to be leaders rather than followers. And was there an epiphany at some point in time that you decided that, hey, I want to be in charge, I want to lead, and I'm not going to be, a follower. I want to make a difference in people's lives.
15.
Well, in a public accounting firm, you're hired out of college, you start at the bottom, and if you find out after a year or two that you're going to be a survivor instead of a dropout, having been through a couple of tax seasons and finding out all of the things that you didn't learn in college, if you decide to stick with it, there's a natural progression that is in the industry, and with all your competition dropping out, why sometimes you wind up as you're the top guy. And so when you're the leader of the firm, then inevitably opportunities will come to be involved in other organizations, and you will realize, I don't recall exactly when I decided that I did like public accounting instead of all the disadvantages, and after all these years, I still love it. So that's another thing to be a leader that I'll just throw in as a side point. Make sure that you're doing something that you love to do. You can't be a leader of an organization of any kind or doing work of any kind if you don't believe in the mission, if you don't believe in the job, if you don't feel that every morning when you get up, you can't wait to get the office to get involved in whatever the work of the day is going to be. And so that inspires you, I think, to help your organization, whatever it may be, and to help accomplish the goals.
Thank you. Sister Barbara, did you have any epiphany, any lightning strikes on your way to Damascus?
I'm still trying to get up off the ground. My lightning strike was by invitation. I think life is nothing but a series of relationships, whether they be personal relationships, professional, spiritual. I knew, how do I say this? This is a terrible thing to say to this group of people, but I got tired, even in grade school, of always being the person that was, the leader of the sodality, the president of this or whatever. So I decided to escape. So I went to St. Mary of the Woods, and my mom and dad just had fits. My daughter is going to become a nun. I mean, they were faith-filled women. Faith-filled folks, and they embraced whatever it was that I really wanted to do and granted me that opportunity. So I just knew that I wanted to get away from all of that, but I couldn't. It followed me. So I entered the Sisters of Providence, obviously went on to St. Mary of the Woods College, got my degree in education. But again, when I entered, and please forgive me, but when I entered, the Catholic Church was in great turmoil. And I was considered a young sister at the age of 20. And what we were being called to by the Catholic Church at that time was to open the windows and to begin to do whatever it is that God's people needed to be done, instead of merely being educators, which we were as Sisters of Providence. So at any rate, I dutifully went to college, did all my classwork, etc. But as a young sister, the old sisters, older, the veterans among us, were making me nuts, along with all of the other young sisters. Because again, you almost felt like they had binoculars. They were constantly looking at absolutely everything that you were doing. Because again, this is really what the Vatican was asking that you do. So I was extremely audacious, and I went to the president, if you will, of the congregation, who was called a general superior, and I said, you got a problem. Me? A 20-year-old young whippersnapper, and said, you have a problem. I'd like to help with that problem. I would like to get these wonderful ladies who are so gifted and so talented, who still have so much to give to the community, get them involved in foster grandparenting, get them involved in working as volunteers at the Cancer Society. Okay, so that's really kind of what happened, and then I went merrily on my way. I graduated, and I was assigned to teach the 6th grade at Precious Blood Jasper. And all of a sudden, I got a phone call from the vice president of the congregation, and she said, "Sister, we would like for you to study gerontology." So that's how all of that happened. It was not by choice. I was invited to do that. And I would say that the veteran leaders among us in this room need to invite people to leadership. I tell you, one of the most awesome experiences I had, and please forgive me for getting personal, but when I came here 30 years ago, for some unknown reason, I was invited to serve on the board of the Chamber of Commerce. I didn't know anything about what the Chamber of Commerce did, but at any rate, I said yes to that. Met magnificent icons of the community, such as Seal Blau, such as Phyllis Garman, such as Mike Sadro, and boy, did those folks teach me. But again, they taught me by invitation. So again, I simply say that my epiphany came by the leadership within my religious congregation saying that they really had confidence in me. They believed that I could make a difference in the field of aging, and so that was my epiphany. I'm still on the ground, still trying to get up.
Well, thanks. And your epiphany matches my epiphany as well. I always thought, as the leader of Luckett and Farley, I thought, well, you just rise up to leadership, just like I did. You just rise up, and the leaders that are there will make themselves known. And over time, I've realized that you really do need to invite people to leadership. So I think that that's excellent advice for some of the older leaders here. JB.
Oh,
I thought you were signaling me.
Boy, I've done that at auction, and it really cost me.
Yeah.
Love it.
Let me ask this. We talked about leadership successes. We talked about vision. Do any of you three have any leadership regrets?
I do.
Personally?
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, I had some failures, some of my acquisitions that failed, and see all those people go out of work was not I regret, but and whatever, I didn't do something right. Or maybe it was intended, who knows, but those were always sad. And I started to say a while ago, we were a little different in our terms of acquisitions. We tended to keep all the people until proved that they were not adequate for the job. And we gained a whole lot of knowledge of the product and the company itself by doing that, as opposed to tossing them all out with the water and starting over again. So that was a little bit different approach than is taken by many acquirers. The first thing they do is dump everybody, and you don't know what knowledge you're giving up that way. And incidentally, Ed, I had to put a little pun at you too.
Do you have another poem?
You said somebody stole knowledge. You don't need to steal knowledge. Knowledge is a unique gift. You can give all that you have and still retain the use of all of it.
That's true. Thank you. Bob, any regrets?
Yeah, I think it's the regret that you employ people, and no matter how complete you make the investigation. And one of these clients that I interviewed indicated that he spent 30 to 45 days before he ever hired a person, and he has about 100 employees. They all average 20 years of employment, so obviously that's a good approach that he has taken. But you hire what you think are good people, and you invest in their training and education, and inevitably, for reasons that all of you who deal with personnel know, that no matter what the training and no matter how complete the selection process, there will be mistakes and there will be terminations. And hopefully you have managed your personnel in such a way that you have some sort of a goal setting or management by objectives program, so that that person realizes that he or she is not meant to continue in this firm. Not to say that he or she might be successful in another firm, but you do have to weed out the non-performers, and it's very difficult to do, but it's good for that individual. He or she can move on and find a better niche, and it's certainly better for the firm as well. But it is disappointing, and it's regretful to have that happen.
Thank you. Sister Barbara, can you add?
Yes, my greatest, what was the question?
Leadership regret.
My greatest regret is that I have been so busy doing so many things that I haven't really taken time to enjoy the successful moments that I've enjoyed with so many people. And that, I mean that very genuinely. You really got to take time to smell those roses and pat yourself on the back. And again, if you're doing what you love to do, your success follows you. You can't find success. I think a successful person is doing what he or she does with excellence, day after day, time after time after time. But again, I think that we all need to kind of take a step aside and fuel our tanks every now and then. I have not done that. And I have not taken the moment to celebrate with those whom I love, with those whom I minister, because my sight is always set on doing something else. So take care of yourselves.
That's great advice. You filled my tank when we met, so thank you for that. One thing that Bob Shine has taught me is that you start on time and you end on time. So I'm going to ask one more question, and then I'm going to ask Mark Eddy to make his special announcement. Is there anybody in the community that is showing real promise? Somebody who looks like they're giving off sparks, leadership sparks. Bob, I'll ask you to start.
I have a person in mind whom most of you know. His name is Diego Morales. Diego came to this country when he was 19. He spoke no English. He had no money. He had an inner drive to succeed. He is now 32. He graduated from IUS. He got experience in a political campaign. He joined the Army. He became a U.S. citizen, and I know of no one more patriotic than Diego. He went to Purdue to take an MBA in their international program, and he wound up with 2 degrees. He is graduating today, as a matter of fact, in the Netherlands from a university whose name I cannot pronounce, but I think it is a prestigious degree. And next week, he will be receiving the Purdue International MBA degree. So here's Diego. He's now 32. He achieved all of this, no government assistance, taking advantage of no entitlement programs. He is a leader who can now pick his choice, and whether that will be in public service. Ed, I think that's one of the things that he has on his radar, and we certainly encourage him in that. Whether it will be in some international corporation, whether it will be in a nonprofit somewhere, maybe working with you. He has a generous giving heart. Diego is my hero, and he is an example that I think of that gives us hope for the future, with someone like that who someday we will all be saying, I remember Diego when. And he'll still remember us. Diego came in the room today. He would work the room as well as anybody I've ever seen. Just a marvelous person.
Thanks, Bob. JB, anybody come to mind?
Well, I've got a good friend that's here locally that's setting a pretty good example for a young person, Mr. Linford. He's setting a pretty high example, and I'm impressed. I ran for office twice, lost. He ran once and won, so I'm impressed as always. He deserves some recognition for that, because it's not a lot of fun to have your pedigree read by strangers.
Sister Barbara, we'll conclude with you.
I had a magnificent experience in this very room in August with many of you. Candy was here. Who else was here? Lots of people were here that I know, but I can't see you right now. But at any rate, I don't think of any one individual. I was so impressed. The Leadership Southern Indiana had put on this regional meeting of 40 leaders in the community. You were here, Sue. At any rate, this room was burgeoning with leaders who were about to be birthed. And again, somebody had confidence in those folks to invite them here that day. So I don't name an individual. I think that Southern Indiana is God's gift to the cosmos. I really do. I think we've got it all, folks. Really do. But again, I think that we need to name and to call people and to raise them up and to give them the opportunity to exercise that passion that they have. So I would love to meet. Would you introduce me to Diego?
I certainly would.
I look forward to
do that, and he would be pleased to meet you.
I look forward to it. Thank you, Bob.
All right, some networking taking place. I like that. All right, well, that concludes our panel discussion. I want to give a special thanks to WNAS for filming today. That's really a special treat for us to be able to do that. Thanks to Jerry Finn for helping to arrange that. Thank you to Ivy Tech for hosting us this morning. Thank you for the remarks that Andrew read. Terry, I really appreciate that. And I will, look, I've got plenty on you, so I don't know why you walked out on the ledge like that, but we'll even the score. And JB, Bob, Sister Barbara, it has been my honor to moderate this discussion. Thank you so much for agreeing to join us this morning. God bless you, and God bless your work. Thanks.
I want to also especially thank Ed for leading us in this discussion today. Appreciate his, this was actually kind of his brainchild thing, so we're excited that he had this idea to go through with this. So thank you, Ed, for. What a wonderful way to start your morning, you know, to be able to come here and have breakfast and listen to some great leadership people who have made in this community the way it is. So we thank you all for participating today in our panel. Also like to thank the Breakfast Series Committee for the work they've done to provide this program today. We're so blessed to have so many great leaders in this community. On your tables, you're going to find a little evaluation form. We ask that you fill this out. On the back of that, if you want more information about Leadership Southern Indiana, there's a place for you to fill out your name and address and all that stuff, and we'll get that to you. We want to also at this time, we'd like to ask you to mark your calendars for February 21st. That's our next breakfast series, and we'll be having Bill Stanzakavich here from the Indiana Youth Institute. He's the president and CEO. We think that'll be a great opportunity. He's a great speaker if you've never heard him, so we're very excited. Now on to this special announcement that Candy Barksdale had mentioned to you in her opening remarks, and also Ed has referred to. A little over 2 years ago, the LSI Executive Board decided to go in a new direction. For years, they had heard Alumni express they wanted LSI to establish its relevancy in the 21st century. The Executive Board implemented a strategic initiative that would realize many firsts for LSI. In June 2010, LSI received a matching grant from the Ogle Foundation that ignited the fire to begin the new initiative. In August 2010, hired the first full-time executive director. In October 2010, we held our first state debates. In spring of 2011, we retooled the 9-month community leadership program. And then in the fall of 2011, we held our mayoral debates for New Albany, Jeffersonville, and Charlestown. And then in May 2012, we branded programs to better reflect the work of LSI. Today, I am thrilled to announce our newest program, and it's called Engage. And so we'll be having, the brochures will be being passed out to you, and we should have our new logo flashing up here in just a second. Engage is the first program developed by LSI in over 2 decades. It's kind of hard to imagine that sometimes we get comfortable with one program, but this is a new program we're very excited about. It's a program targeted to those individuals who are interested in developing better skills for board service and or public service. Engage was designed by alumni for our community. I would like to recognize members of our committee that are here. In the very back by the door is Stacy Marshall. She was the chair of our Engage committee, and thank her and the great work she has done and with the committee. Mary Springer, Scott Carr, Kenton Wooden is here too. I saw him somewhere, if he'll stand up. And also we had Blair Bernard, who had worked on this committee, and there was many, many others who have helped on the side and in putting some things together as part of this. Of course, none of this would be possible without the support of our sponsors. I'm excited to announce that Norton Healthcare is the title sponsor for Engage. Thank you for your work. I appreciate that. As you leave today, there'll be extra brochures in the back there that you can take. As they mentioned here earlier about inviting people to leadership, we want you to take that step. We want you to take this. If you're interested in this program, consider applying for this. It's a very small class, 12 to 16 people, and that's the way it's been designed. It's classroom oriented. So we really want you to participate, but if you might know somebody that you think would be good for this class, this is a great opportunity for you to invite somebody to leadership. So we ask that you do that. Again, I want to thank everyone for the fine turnout today. This is, we actually had a sellout, and so we're very excited about that, and we want to thank you for coming. I know this is the holiday season. We want to encourage you to have a great holiday and have a great new year, and thank you, and we look forward to working with you again in 2013. Thank you all.